Hello.
Hi, I'm going to pause for being here with us today and for joining in for our talk with Salon for Social Justice. Some of you guys who are watching at home are in the salon or are familiar with our backstory. And Tyler and I were introduced about 4 years ago by a mutual friend in Portland, Oregon, who's an artist and activist, and asked us to start a discussion group similar to one that they had going on for folks in Seattle. So yeah, we've been going for just over 4 years. We started at a time of like momentous social change right after the Trump inauguration, and we have really grown so much and learned from everyone in the group. Started out meeting in person at least once a month, and now transitioned online to check in with folks anywhere during the pandemic. And we've had really great discussions. So I'm glad to continue that. Tyler, do you have anything you want to add about our origin story?
Perfect.
So for this talk, I am really honored and excited to be joined by my someone who's really dear to me, Tamara Winfrey Harris, and she's the author of Dear Black Girl, Letters from Your Sisters on Stepping into Your Power. We also have one of the letter writers, and that would be Robin Tillotson. Yeah, there's a lot that I could say about this book. I am really excited because it's been a long time coming. It's a project that was inspired by the Letters to Black Girls project, which is something that Tammy has been working on for a few years, and really, opening it up to everyone who has something they want to share with Black women or Black girls, just about feeling empowered and feeling good in our skin, and yeah, a lot of encouragement that we can use at this time. So I'm excited to see this come to fruition, and it's also really dear to me because both Tammy and Robin happen to be cousins of mine. So it's a really great dialogue to have, especially for me, because we grew up in different parts of the country. They're both in the Midwest, Chicago and Indianapolis area, and I'm in Seattle. So the conversations that are had in this book are things that I didn't necessarily have with a lot of women, in my life growing up. And in Seattle, where the demographics are different, I had to turn to different sources to find that confidence or kind of a reflection of Black womanhood or Black girlhood. So I am just really grateful to have both of you here. And yeah, would love for you to share more about how this project came about.
Hey, cousin Jordan.
Hey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us here. I am so honored to do this event with you and with my cousin Robin, who is a contributor to Dear Black Girl as well. So I thought I might kick us off by just reading a little bit from the preface of the book, and then Robin and I'll have a conversation, share some letters, and please do, if you have questions, do add them to the chat. I know Tyler is monitoring the chat, and we would be happy to answer any. And if you have any comments, we would love to have a dialogue. Does that sound good, Robin?
Sounds good.
Sounds awesome. All right. So the preface of the book is called We Are All Right. And it sort of harkens back to my first book, which was called The Sisters Are All Right. But it starts, my Black girls, you tell me things. You tell me how you love your mamas, but kind of hate them too. You tell me about, fuckboys at school who text dirty messages. You tell me about beauty insecurities, 2 big noses and 5 heads. You tell me who you like, showing me pictures of boys on IG and giggling, ain't he cute? You tell me these things and I smile. It's been a while since I was a girl, but I remember hating my parents' rules and being insecure about my looks. I remember the trifling boys and the superfine crushes. Some things about Black girlhood never change. But you tell me other things too. You tell me about anxiety or depression that will not let go. You tell me about social media memes that leave you feeling demeaned and hated. You tell me about boys and men who violate you and families who cannot deal with the devastation of sexual assault. You tell me about carrying the burden of friends and family who have been murdered. You tell me about families who cannot accept your queer identity. You tell me about schools that suspend you for petty reasons. You tell me how people assume you are angry, unfeminine, grown, and hypersexual before you can even find out who you are for yourself. You tell me these things and I worry. I remember that the world does not value Black girls like it should, and some things that are too common in Black girlhood must change.
So Tammy, I've got I would say about 6 questions I want to ask, and I think it will give the audience a great view of how your book came about. This is a phenomenal piece of work, groundbreaking work as well. So Tammy, where did you get the idea for Dear Black Girl?
So I was doing an intergenerational workshop with 2 of my dear friends, Dr. Carolyn Strong and Dr. Tiffany Monford Dent. And I offhandedly got this idea that maybe the 12 girls that were part of the workshop, like, wouldn't it be neat if they could walk away with a letter from a Black woman? And so I went to Facebook and just offhandedly said, can anybody write a letter? I need 12 letters. And as Black women often do, we showed up and showed out. And I got more than 50 letters from all across the world, one as far as a friend of yours from Switzerland. And I read the first letter and it was absolutely amazing. And I realized that this had to be more than just a moment, it needed to be a movement. And there were so many letters that needed to be seen by more than one girl. They needed to be seen by girls all over the world. And I thought one good way to do that would be by creating a book.
Okay. So Tammy, what is the narrative of the book?
So, someone asked me what I wanted Black girls to take from this. And I want them to feel loved. And I want them to feel loved in all the ways that they show up in the world. And so, when I first took all of the letters that I had received, a lot of them were advice or, general inspiration.
Mhm.
But I wanted to add to that because it was important to me, for instance, that there was a letter from a trans woman, that there was a letter from a woman who had been adopted, that there were letters from women who had survived sexual assault, and letters from women who were managing their mental health, all of those different things, because I wanted girls to pick up the letter and realize that no matter what intersected identities or what they were going through, that there was a woman who had done that before. And I also used some of the conversations that I had had with girls to know what things that they were dealing with. Also, things like, we know that 60% of Black girls will experience sexual assault before they turn 18. We know that Black girls are the fastest growing group in the juvenile justice system. So not to address some of those things would be a loss, I think, would be a miss, and might make girls feel shame about the reality of their lives. So,
Mm.
and then there were just women like yourself that I just thought were awesome. And
Oh,
Black
thank you, thank you.
so
So, Tammy, often we hear about the letters, the letter writers. What are the girls saying as they read these letters, or with that first group that you worked with?
So it was. I got a chance to hand deliver some letters to a group of girls in Indianapolis, and they were a little shy, but they loved them. You know, they had these big smiles, and I remember one of them was like, "Nobody has ever done this for me before,"
Wow.
because I don't even get letters anymore. Who writes letters?
Yeah, that's
Nobody.
true.
So certainly, like a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, they really had never received letters, and
Mhm.
especially ones that were affirmations. So some of the girls read the letters out loud, and to just hear them reading that you are beautiful and you are smart and all of these things, like they really loved it.
So, letter writing, you're right, nobody does that anymore. But it's such an intimate way to communicate with people. And
Teeny
so,
saying, I do. I still write
oh,
letters.
do you? Oh my God. Were you okay? I'm just curious though, what once they read the letters, can you share with us, what were some of the responses?
So a lot of them, one of the things that I'd love to do as a second step to this is like spend more time with girls after they read the letters and kind of dig into some of the issues.
Sure.
Um, because, you could tell by their responses that they appreciated the words in the letters. And the letters that I brought them were mostly the inspirational ones, not the ones that dug into individual issues.
Sure.
Um, but they didn't do it. They didn't do a lot of talking. They were still kind of, they were a younger group of girls. But then I've also heard from like young women, like 20s, and even older women who have read the book that have said, I needed that. So reading back on some of these experiences that I've had as a girl, even as an adult, it has been useful for me.
One of the things I've noticed about your first book and your writings, your articles and that kind of thing is that it's often a very cathartic experience for me. I know when I read your first book, I was sitting, went to pick up some breakfast before going to work. And I said, well, let me get started, and read the preface. And I hadn't even gotten to chapter one, and tears just started flowing because I realized the impact of some of the things that Black women go through. So one of my questions would be, how did you go about picking the letters?
So it was hard. It was so
I
hard.
bet, I bet it was.
I have not received one bad letter. I just haven't. Um, I tried to choose the best of the ones that I got in that original batch. But like I said, most of them were advice or inspiration. And I didn't want that to be the entire book. There were some specific topics that I wanted to get at. So I also had to proactively reach out to women in order to make sure the right voices were there. So for topics like sexual assault that I knew needed to be, mental health needed to be in there, family, in the family chapter, which is actually my favorite chapter, I wanted to make sure I had several different family structures represented. So I had to do a little proactive reaching out as well.
And can you tell us how your book, how the chapters are situated, how they're labeled?
Sure. The first chapter is on identity. So that's the chapter that kind of talks about, how Black girls feel about themselves, how they identify. It gets at some of their intersections. So there are letters from biracial Black women, there are letters from queer Black women, there are letters for women that just want to talk about their skin color. And how they felt growing up as dark brown skinned women or light brown skinned women. They're just letters about Black girl magic and just feeling good about who Black girls are. And then I move into talking about family.
Mm.
And, you know, there's a reason why that chapter is my favorite because, you know, I grew up in a traditional family with a mom and dad and brother and sister, but most Black girls don't. And we get fed this message that somehow that's deficient,
Yes.
that Black families are deficient for the ways that they don't fit into those spaces. And that's not true. And I want girls to know that if you have people that love and support you, then you have a family, whether that's through biology or that's chosen family or blood family or whatever it is. Um, so then, you know, the next chapter is where my girl's at. So
Mm.
it's about friendship and being a
That's
good
my favorite chapter.
choosing. That's your favorite chapter,
Yeah.
choosing good friends. Work, 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 which is about, you know, career, but also other passions. You know, there's a great letter in there from an artist that I love called LaShonda Crow Storm about just how she found herself as an artist. I didn't ask for this, which is sort of the tough stuff chapter. We talk about incarceration and, you know, becoming a teen mom and poverty and, you know, sexual assault and some of those tough issues. Black Girl Interrupted, which is about mental health. Boot Up, which is about sex. There's only one letter in that chapter because I had a hard time getting Black women to talk, to write a letter about sex. But the one that Toya Smith wrote is amazing.
Yes,
So
it
if
is.
there could only be one letter, she touched on it all.
Yes, she did.
And then Girl Listen is the last chapter, which is just great advice to carry girls through life. And then, you know, in between there, I have some breakout sections called Know This, because there are people and issues that are brought up in the book that girls may want to learn more about. Or, you know, when we talk about things like sexual assault or, you know, suicidal ideation or things like that, they may need to know where to go for help.
Yes.
And if they do, I wanted that to be accessible to them.
So tell me, Tammy, do you have a favorite letter?
That is my least favorite question because they're all like my babies. I
Oh
will,
boy,
I
Ed.
will, I will say that I think my favorite letter is always the first letter that I received. And actually, um, I'll read it for you. I also want Robin to read her letter because her letter is one of my favorites. But this is the first letter that I received. And when you hear it, perhaps you will know why I said, oh, this has to be a thing. It's from a woman named Nicole Jackson, and it starts, "Good evening, darling. I write this letter from a hotel room in Houston, Texas, a long way away from my small apartment on Halsted Street in East Orange, New Jersey. I don't think, even as a child, I imagined a world bigger than that town full of hopeful hopelessness. I couldn't see past the concrete or crack needles that line the path to where I now find myself today. But here I am, writing to you, my darling. I am writing you, wishing you well in a time that may seem to be anything other to little girls that look like you, that look like us. I write you without knowing your story or your path, so perhaps I should share my own. I was the young flower that bloomed from the broken glass and concrete of the hood, the daughter of a genius welder and engineer turned crack addict. He died before I could appreciate his brilliance. I am the child of two parents infected with HIV before there were medications to treat it. One died, the other is still here, although forever changed. The daughter of a valedictorian and woman in STEM who was accepted into every Ivy League she applied to. However, the isolation of being educated in a predominantly white school took its toll, and she left too soon. My mother studied biomedical engineering. I am now the vice president of strategy, leading engineers in healthcare technology, and I'm owning my space to ensure your experiences won't be the same. Life is complicated and nonlinear. Learn that now. There are many paths to the same destination. If you should find that plan A fails, remember to fall back on the rest of your alphabet.
Mm.
I was a high school dropout, but planned to begin my doctorate in learning technologies. Sometimes it's hard to catch my breath and take this journey in because there was a time when I thought that the only people who held doctor titles were physicians. But in a few years, I'll be one. I am now one of 125 women chosen by the largest scientific organization in the United States to nationally represent women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And in a few short months, a life-sized statue of myself and 119 other incredible women will be on display, and I will be thinking of you during its unveiling. When you are low and feeling down, and your body and energy are weary, remember these words. Pull from me all the positive energy I hold for you here in my heart as I type these words. Remember that within those veins, you carry the legacy of a dozen generations waiting for you to arrive to your own occasion. Do not fear your own brilliance and beauty. Do not hide it or dim your light because others complain of the glare. If you feel like you are bigger than something, that's because you are. I wish I would have written you from the beaches of St. Lucia or the waters of Loch Ness in Scotland. I wish I could have taken notes during my commute to work in Silicon Valley or during lunch breaks while looking out on the bay in San Francisco. I wish you could walk with me through the buildings of Houston Community College as I work with the brilliant minds of the most diverse city in the nation to tackle the issue of flooding and climate change with technology. We should have been pen pals a long time ago. I'm sure there would have been much to discuss. But no, you were there with me. No, you are here with me. Know that you will be there for every keynote address at every given tech conference. You will be there for every new concept or application I create, for every new breakthrough, every algorithm, every data model created. You will be on my mind as I research while pursuing my doctorate to understand how you think and learn so someday someone can teach your children better than others have taught you. Know that you are not alone. You are not invisible. I see you. You are capable. You are powerful. You are worthy. You are part of a larger community, and with us, you are home. As Black women, we are not the exception. We are the norm, and I will wait for you. We will wait for you. I will build an infrastructure for you and keep the path lit on your journey so you'll never have to worry about finding your way again. In moments when life seems most uncertain and you are most afraid of your future, think of the caterpillar who did not know that when it saw a butterfly flying above, it too would become one. You are a part of something bigger. So accept the uneasiness in your gut when you desire more and trust it, and then rise to your own occasion. You will be met with equal company. Love, Nicole.
Wow. Wow. That letter is the epitome of how Black women have historically looked after one another. And I think back to my own childhood where Miss Smith next door looked out for you, fed you if your mom was coming home late from work. Just that feeling that we are one and we are one community. And that letter that Nicole writes is just, it hits it right on the head.
And I loved it because she talked about like a proactive love. Like I
Yeah,
like that she said, I will build an infrastructure for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I will make the world better. So your experience will be different from mine. And it also kind of gets at sort of what you talked about. It kind of goes back to the talk about family. Like
Mm,
our concept of family, even though society tries to make us narrow it, has always been vast and wide. You
yeah,
know, there's always been the neighbor looking out for you. There's always been play cousins. I mean, we're cousins, but there's always been play cousins.
Yeah.
And all of those other people that like surround you in the village and lift you up.
And taking that responsibility, like when she talked about the infrastructure, I have felt for a long time we've gotten away from accepting the fact that we are responsible, for each other, and nobody else is going to do it.
Mhm.
So, thank you for sharing that.
I
Did you want me to read mine, or did you?
do want you to read yours and
All
talk a
right.
little bit about like the process of writing it. Because I don't think I told you, some people I said, you writing about this. I don't think I told you what to write about. So how did you come to the place?
You didn't. I am I'm big on self care, and I have observed for a very long time how the number of Black women in particular, we take care of everybody. We take care of aging parents. We take care of sick parents. We take care of children. We love our grandchildren. So we're heavily involved in their lives and that kind of thing. And I just started noticing that with all of that love, there was a piece that seemed to be missing. And it might not have been missing, but just kind of ignored. And that's the piece of self care. And so I thought about it from the standpoint also from at growing up, I was always looking out for other people. I had a lot of responsibility growing up, more than you probably should have at age 12 or 13. And so I had to learn. It wasn't until my 40s that I really understood what self care was all about. And so if I were to do it over again, if I were coming into the world for the first time, that's probably the area that I would focus on. I would still do for others, I would still be community minded, but I think I would do a better job of taking care of myself in those earlier years. So that was the impetus, and just I guess the thought that everybody wants to believe they got something to say to someone, and they hope that they, can benefit from their mistakes and even their successes. So that was the impetus for the letter. So I'll read it. So, dear Black girl, I am writing this letter to share that in all you're doing, achieving, living, learning, and loving of others, please make a promise first to love you some you. You live in a world that won't always see how great you are. Even if it sees it, the world won't always want to acknowledge it. Your inner beauty and power will feel like a threat to some people, especially if you make loving yourself important. Those people will try to convince you, often in subtle ways, that you should take a back seat to those they feel are more entitled to great things in life. Girls with blonde hair and blue eyes, girls at nicer schools, girls who are thinner or who have the right shape, tiny waists, big booties, and thick thighs. Girls with lots of money and fancy friends. Some people will not hesitate to say that because you may not have some of this or other things that they think matter, you should take a back seat. When you feel this, beautiful Black girl, reinforce your armor by taking care of yourself first and foremost. Here is how. Recognize that you are beauty personified. You are the offspring of millions of beautiful Black women. There are countless famous examples: Serena Williams, Alicia Keys, Felicia Rashad, Nicki Minaj, Angela Rye, Harriet Tubman, Lupita Nyong'o, Barbara Jordan, and the singer Her. More importantly, you can spot this beauty just by walking out your door and looking around your neighborhood and school. There is beauty in the Black woman who is caring for her children with little or no help, and the bold, beautiful Black woman cashier at the neighborhood Walmart. Only beauty comes from beauty. Though these are facts. Recognize these women as a mirror reflection of your own beauty, as your beauty is a reflection for them. Feed your mind the best food. Read the works of great Black writers like Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, J. California Cooper, Zora Neale Hurston, and Octavia Butler. Feed your body the best food and drink you can. Drinking loads of water, eating those veggies, lean protein, and indulging your sweet tooth only sometimes goes a long way. I know it isn't easy. Sometimes eating something that tastes good can make you feel better. Sometimes our neighborhoods don't always have grocery stores with good food. The bodega or corner store may only carry a few janky looking apples. Maybe your family can't always afford the fresh stuff. Just do your best. Also, exercise. I don't care what it is, walk, dance, turn cartwheels. Just move and keep moving. This is where I have struggled the most, eating right and moving. But I know that when I'm on top of this, I feel on top of the world. Nothing redeeming can come from smoking, doing drugs, or excessive drinking. You want every inch of your beauty to show up regularly. Trust me, you won't find any value in anything that will diminish that. Keep company with the most encouraging friends and associates. Surround yourself with like-minded people who show up for you and encourage you and allow you to do the same for them. Be among those who have dreams and goals because these people will help to fuel your dreams and desires. And find mentors, people who have proven that dreams can come true, even if obstacles crop up and are willing to share that wisdom with you. Educate yourself about the world you want to live in and the work that you want to do in it. In addition to learning about your own beautiful Black culture, don't hesitate to learn about other cultures, especially the cultures of people who have overcome obstacles as our people have. Learn about foods, rituals, languages, and how others celebrate life. And travel too. Finally, once you've recognized that your gifts and talents, what your gifts and talents are, throw your whole self into them with love and every drop of passion you have. If you attend college or some specialized program, learn your major course of study inside and out so that you can bring your highest self to the world that you will be serving. This, I guarantee you, will bring you joy and fulfillment. This is what it means to love you some you. Love yourself first, and that leads to a genuine love of others. May you reach your highest ground. I wrote that letter to myself, I guess. Oh my God. That's the first time I read it and got teary eyed.
I love that.
I thank you for the
And you're
opportunity.
absolutely right. We achieve so much, Black women achieve so much, and we support so many people. But imagine what we could do with all that if we weren't so often pouring from an empty cup.
Yes.
If we chose ourselves first sometimes. You know, it's trite, but the old adage, you know, when you're on an airplane and they tell you what to do, if you lose cabin pressure, it's, you know, put the oxygen on yourself first before
Yes.
trying to help someone else. And we very often don't put the oxygen on ourselves first because we've been told it's selfish to do that, but it's not, it's survival.
Yes, indeed. So Tammy, what's next for you? You've done, I mean,
I
you've done some major things. You've written for the New York Times. Your first book was a bestseller. And this is on its way. And more importantly, it's transforming lives. So what's next for you?
So wow, so thank you. I I just turned in last week the manuscript for the second expanded edition of The Sisters Are All Right, which was my first book. So much has happened in the 6 years since I wrote that book about, about Black women. As a matter of fact, just reading some of the things I wrote then, I was like, that wouldn't even happen today. And it's only been 6 years later. So I did more interviews with women.
Oh,
I included the voices of trans women, which was missing from the first book. I talked to more young women in their 20s and early 20s. And I added a new chapter on Black women in power. So talking about all the gains that have happened in community activism and politics. There are 3 Black women essentially leading the new civil rights movement,
yes.
leaders of Black Lives Matter. So talking about some of those issues and how stereotypes still intersects with the idea of Black women and power and the work that we're doing.
Wow. Wow. It's been amazing and amazing. Is there anything else you want to share from your latest work?
Well, I would love to close out our conversation by reading the epilogue and then, take questions from the group. I also want everyone to know that if you visit my website at tamarawinfreyharris.com, there's a reader experience kit. So for anyone who is reading the book and wants an accompaniment to like letters like Robin's, there are more questions that you can use to kind of round out the issues in the book. I worked with an educator and a psychologist to get some tips for good intergenerational conversation, because there can be a power imbalance there, right? If you're an adult and you're a parent and you're, want to have an honest conversation with a kid, like there's a power imbalance. So you have to navigate that. And there are some very cute paper dolls that I am too old to play with, but that's not going to stop me. And a really dope playlist that was created by a 17-year-old on that you can listen to on Spotify. So is there anything before I read from this epilogue, Robin is too modest because she has this wonderful endeavor called This I Do For Me. Is there anything you want to mention? Anything coming up next?
Well, we had to put all of our travel on hold. We have been on every continent except Antarctica. And just for the record, we ain't going to Antarctica. So, um,
Come on, Robin.
and so we were scheduled, one group of mine was scheduled to go to Ghana this year, July, and we've postponed that till next July of 2022. And then another group was going back to Southeast Asia, Vietnam and Cambodia, and we canceled that and completely. So, I mean, we'll reschedule it when times are a little bit, when Corona is on her way out of here. And so right now I'm really focusing on my podcast, This I Do For Me, Women Over 50, Black and Fabulous. So it's geared toward that particular demographic because women in that age group are doing some phenomenal things. I mean, they've done phenomenal things in the past, but you would be amazed at the number of women who are age 50 plus who have new ideas, new dreams. And as a matter of fact, Tammy, a couple of them have read your book and they're just taking some of this advice for themselves as if they're entering this thing for the first time. So when I say your writing is cathartic, I really do mean that, for older Black women. And so, um, and that's pretty much it right now. Working on the podcast, planning out trips for 2022 and beyond. And we'll see what else is coming, what comes to mind to do. I feel like I'm just getting started, really. And once you read something like this, in your first book, you really can kind of clear out and then cleanse and then say, okay, I'm ready for round 2. So things are just beginning for women who are 50 plus.
Yeah, they better be. Yes, they are.
It's a whole lot of us. Ah,
So the epilogue to the book is called Pick Up Your Oyster Knife, and I hope everybody um, picks up that Zora Neale Hurston reference there. I love you, Black girl. I love Black girls in Afro puffs and Black girls in bundles of Remy. I love the daddy's girls and the fatherless ones. I love the little sisters who make straight A's and the ones who skip school. I love the hood girls and the suburban girls and the country girls too. I love the quiet girls and the loud girls, the lip smacking, smart talking ones. I love the saved girls and the heathens. I love the girls who stay in sweatshirts and J's and the ones in tight Fashion Nova fits. I love the happy girls and the anxious girls and the girls battling depression.
mm,
I love the trans girls living defiantly. I love the girls in the library and the ones on the basketball court. I love the virgins and the young mamas. I love the girly girls and the butch girls. I love the girls who fight. I love the girls who love boys and the girls who love girls and the girls who love both or neither. I love you, Black girl, unconditionally. And whether you are 15 or 50, you hear me? Today, I love you whether you look or act like they say you should. You are not wrong. And when you are wrong, I love you with all your flaws. No matter what choices and mistakes you have made, no matter where you live, no matter what you look like, no matter what thing has happened to you. And the greatest thing you can learn is to love yourself unconditionally too. Maybe the hardest thing you have to learn. I hope the letters in this book have shown you how. One other thing, Black girl, you must learn to love other Black women and girls the same way. Love us whether we look or act like they say we should. We are not wrong. When we are wrong, love us with all our flaws. No matter what choices and mistakes we have made, no matter where we live, no matter what we look like, no matter what thing has happened to us. Now, this doesn't mean you have to become a target for another Black girl's pain or anger or trauma. Doesn't mean you have to silence yourself in the face of Black women. It means you must give your sisters grace and understanding, the benefit of the doubt. So few people give us that. We owe it to each other. We have to acknowledge each other's humanity, even maybe especially when we are walking away. I hope the letters in this book have shown you how to do that too. Because we are sisters, Black girl. We have to take care of ourselves and each other. You are me, I am you, and we are all right. Inside each of us are tiny pieces of our foremothers. Sarah Boone's ingenuity, Danielle Luna's unforgettable beauty, Toni Morrison's incomparable wisdom, Mamie Till's fierce love, Aretha Franklin's creativity, Marsha P. Johnson's fearlessness, Harriet Tubman's will to survive, Katherine Johnson's genius, Michelle Obama's grace. Black girls are made up of all that magic, birthed in the African sun, baptized by the Middle Passage, burnished by America. That is a power no one else can claim, just us. We are sisters. You are me. I am you. And we will get free together. Zora Neale Hurston, a great Black woman writer, once said, I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife.
mm.
An oyster knife is a utensil used to crack open the shell of an oyster to get the tasty meat inside. Zora meant that she wasn't wasting time thinking about the hard parts of being Black and a woman, and she didn't care what other people said about her. She was busy trying to get at all the good stuff life had to offer. Celebrate your Black girl life. Celebrate us. Be like Zora and get that oyster girl. Thank
Go
you.
girl. Yes, yes, yes. Can we now take questions?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Tyler?
We have a question actually from Tina Marie saying, Robin, is Italy still in the running?
Oh, well, I can talk with you about that offline, but right now we're not sure because the numbers for those infected have gone up in Italy. So we're not saying no, but we're not saying a definite yes.
Yeah, the reason why I asked because it was planned before, and because of COVID, that was canceled. But we can talk definitely after this here.
Sounds good, Tina.
I wonder of, the women who are here on Zoom, like what is, if you had a piece of advice that you would give to younger you, what it would be?
Tina, I think you want to say something. You can unmute and speak.
That question has been asked a lot. And because of my growth and what I'm doing as official spiritual warrior, and where I am, the age that I am, I would have told myself to be a lot bolder, a lot more outspoken, but there's probably a reason why. Um, um, and to had taken a lot more chances. I know that we can be a lot more critical of ourselves and we should be less critical. Um, I just wish I'd have been a lot more bolder. I had my moments. I grew up with a lot of the guys. I was an active athlete. I tell myself to take more chances and really to have spoken up more for myself, but I don't think I knew how. So I know that to be a truth. And just to stand in my light and power as a young woman. And this book, these letters just have lifted up what I need to do and what I need to share. So
Well,
yeah.
I think we all, the bad thing is once as we start getting older and we're like, ooh, I should have been bold. Once we get the courage to be bold, then you're not 25 anymore. However, I think one of the, and we know why sometimes we're not bold, because Black women don't get a lot of second chances and we're judged harshly. But the thing we can do for each other is to support each other in our boldness and form a sister circle around each other, so that if you're bold and you fall, there's somewhere soft to land. And I think, it's our duty, those of us who are women today, to create a space. Like I always say, I want my nieces to be better than me, even though I'm awesome. I want them to be better because I want them to live in a world that's better. So, we need to create a world where the younger girls that are coming behind us can be as bold as they want to without having to worry about it.
And Tammy, Tina was the winner of your book in the contest I ran in my group.
Yay!
I can't wait to receive it.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I thank y'all for that. I just want to say something else, because when you talk about sisterhood, I didn't have that. I didn't have that except for with my grandmother and my older adults and my great grandmother, and she died pretty young in front of me. So I'm looking forward to that and standing with who I am. And I've also had to not be or express who I am because of who I am, because I'm not like everybody else in the way the world thinks I should be. And so that's kind of been a battle to just step into my authentic self. And I am choosing to do so in more than one way.
We love your authentic self.
Yes, indeed, Tina.
Thank you for bringing it here today.
Thank you.
Loretta put a point in, maybe both Tammy and Robin can give some helpful advice here. She's trying to bridge the gap between the older and younger girls and young women in her family that don't listen or don't seem to be interested in what she has to share with them. How would she help bridge this gap?
Tammy, you want me to start?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, Loretta, I think it's really important when you're working with young people that you are looking at them in a way that's kind of like equal, in the sense that you were not preaching to them. We're not looking at them like, I got something to say that you can benefit from. I think giving them more of a voice and listening. A lot of times we think we're listening and we're not. And I know I've been guilty of that. So I think finding a way where you equalize the relationship to a degree. Tammy, what do you think?
That's perfect advice. I was going to say, a great place to start is in listening to them, because sometimes we think we know what they need from our own experiences, but what they actually need or may want advice on may be slightly different. So I would start by listening, because it helps to build, trust. And, one of the things that I wanted this book to model is approaching Black girls with vulnerability and love instead of, fear. Sometimes because we're worried and scared for Black girls and how they're going to fare in society, we approach them like this, like, don't do this. And let me tell you, that, instead of saying what a lot of the women in this book were, let me tell you what happened to me. Let me tell you, like, be opening your heart and maybe talking about mistakes you have made, which is a more vulnerable way to build trust, I think, and open the door for them to share with you as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Kim and Karen, you popped on screen. Does that mean that you have advice to your younger self?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I just wanted to say I love the book, and it has become my favorite gift to give recently. I've donated a couple to schools, and I really love it. And it actually hit home with me on two different levels. First of all, there was a section in there where you kind of chastise older women who were a bit judgmental. And I saw myself and I had to put myself in check, because I have a young niece who's about the age level where the book and I'm like, ooh, maybe I have not been as great as I should have been. And then second, Robin, your letter really hit home as well, because I felt like it was even at my age speaking to me, because I am a full-time caregiver now. And I have to realize that I have to take time for myself, And so that anyone who is giving all the time, you
Yes.
can't feel bad about, putting yourself first sometimes. So I really loved it. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you, cousin.
Another cousin.
Yeah, shout out to all the family as well.
A family affair. What can we say?
Yeah.
But it is true. Like, I love that you wrote that article, that letter, Robin. My first book, there's a story that stays with me. An interview I did with a woman who she had this big awakening in her 40s, because she had a health crisis, and she was able to move on and prioritize her health. But she talks about all of the sister friends that she lost because they did not. And she told the story
Yeah.
about a friend of hers who she taught with, who had like 2,000 hours of sick time saved up, and who was living with pain because she kept saying she couldn't go to the doctor because, you know, they can't do without me here. And, you know, family kid, like she had all these reasons why she had all this responsibility and couldn't bother going to the doctor. And when she finally did, she was terminal. And so I always think of that, someone who had the privilege of the ability to take time for herself.
Did not.
And now all of the people who did rely on her don't have her anymore, and she doesn't have her life. And so I always try to remember that we are valuable.
Yes.
Above
yes.
and beyond what we do for other people.
Tammy, Tina asked in the comments, I think maybe she wasn't here for the first portion of the talk, about the inspiration and what got you started with the letters.
So I talked a little bit about how, like, I first came to solicit letters, but there actually was a deeper story, and that was that when I was touring with my first book, I noticed that when I was in groups of Black women and we were talking about stereotypes, negative stereotypes of Black women, you know, they would reject them. Like, we would say, I certainly am not a Jezebel or a, you know, Sapphire, or all, you know, angry, all of those stereotypes. But when they started talking about younger women and girls, they were like, woo, Todd, woo, I don't know. You know, then those same stereotypes started coming out. You know, suddenly all of those things are valid, even as you reject them. And then, you know, I started working on a project with another friend of mine and interviewing girls and young women. And they said that too often it was grandma who told them not to go in the sun so they don't get too dark, or that their hair was too nappy, or, you know, auntie who, you know, talked about girls as being fast and, you know, don't be fat, like who use some of those pejoratives. And so that they didn't always feel supportive in being their authentic selves, and knowing that what society told them was not true. And so, you know, I wanted this book to model maybe a more effective way and a more loving way that we can communicate with Black girls, by being vulnerable and talking about our own experiences.
Awesome, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I was wondering how you found the people. I mean, that's just so, it's just so really, really deep um, amongst it. And how you find the people to be able to do that, because I know you're on the move, so.
The first batch just came from a call on Facebook, and I got a lot of letters that way. But then I wanted, like, there were specific issues that I wanted to cover in the book so girls could see themselves in a lot of different ways. So, you know, there are some women I proactively asked to submit letters. Like, you know, my friend, Dr. Dent, who's a psychologist, I wanted her I wanted her to write about mental health because she works with girls, and I knew she would do that in a great way. I wanted to find a trans woman to talk about her experience because it was important that girls who are trans saw that. I knew, like, Aisha Shahida Simmons, who's done so much work about, you know, sexual assault. I wanted her to write to Black girls as a sexual assault survivor. Faith Adiele, who's a biracial Black woman, wrote wonderfully about being biracial, and you are not a fraction, you are a whole. So I wanted, like, all of those experiences. So some of those women, I proactively reached out to them and asked if they would contribute.
Tammy, how has your work of, particularly with this book, how has it affected you?
It's, you know, both the first book and this, it's cathartic for me as well. That first letter from Nicole Jackson made me ugly cry. And I don't like to do that. But it's cathartic because I think, you know, there is always a piece of our young self inside us. You know, little Tammy is still in there, and needs to hear these things even as an adult. Even as adults, when we think we know better. Like, there's a lot in this book. We say we know, but you know, sometimes we forget and we need a reminder. So, yeah.
Great, great. Other questions?
Am I able to get your other book, Bestly, through your site so you get the whole soiree of the, you know? Just saying, I'm just honest girl. I understand. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Amazon is normally the go-to, but you know what I'm saying?
and I love that for me. I'd love to get the whole story. But you know what I tell people right now? So both books are available any place books are sold. And I tell people to support your local independent bookstores.
Okay.
They really need supporting right now. And when you lose one, you don't know how much you loved it. And if you don't have one near you, there are several great Black-owned independent bookstores that'll ship online instead of going to the monster that is Amazon. There's Source Booksellers in Detroit, Uncle Bob
Semicolon.
in
I'm in Cleveland.
Poland, in Chicago.
I'm in Cleveland, so I have to see.
Or you
Cleveland.
can just go online, Tina.
Yeah, go online. They'll ship. Mahogany Books in DC, they will ship. Uncle Bobby's in Philly will ship. Loyalty in Virginia will ship. They're all black-owned local independent booksellers.
Okay, love. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, for that link to Black bookstores. Yeah. I always tell people to go to Karis. They're the oldest feminist bookstore in the South in Atlanta, and they're always very supportive to me. So, yeah.
Thank you everyone for your questions. And yeah, thank you again, Tammy and Robin, for being with us today and just sharing all of this. It's really felt like soul food for me, and it's refreshing to hear this story directly from you and to have everyone in the space. And I, just in closing, would also like to dedicate this to all of the young Black girls and women, the ones that we know and those we don't, the ones that are here on the call and who might be watching this later, and also in our family, Kennedy, Kaya, Nina, Brooklyn, and the women that came before us, Georgia, Ida, Maddie, Josie, Maggie, Ella, Connie, who is here with us. I think she's still on the call, who would be your mom. My mom, Susan Millender, and my sister, Tracy Compton, and everyone else who's here with us. Thank you so much. And
I'd like to add one dedication to Darnella Frazier, because we have all been watching the Derek Chauvin trial this last week. And the reason we have that footage, the reason we know about that public lynching is because of a teenage Black girl who stood there and witnessed that murder and didn't flinch and didn't leave. And people don't lift up her name enough.
Great point. I say.
Sorry to cut you off, Jordan.
No, perfect. Yes. So yeah, in closing, we hope that you guys will all go and support your local bookstores and find this book to share with women and girls in your family, and you can continue this discussion with us online and in the future. We really thank you for being here.
Love you, everybody, especially my cousins. I love you all.
So glad I was here with you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, Tina.
See you, Robin. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right. Much love. All right.